My regular computer I couldn't get through, so I had to quickly change. So let's get started. Welcome to those who have joined us. Very, very pleased. So I guess first we'll ask for approval of the minutes from the last meeting. We need a motion for that, or
I'll move to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
you, and second.
Second from Keith.
Any discussion? No, Fran's not talking, so I guess they're fine. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, that's done. Jessica, you want to jump in here?
Absolutely. And I'm going to apologize in advance. I am a little under the weather, so I'm home and away from other people, so no one can get my germs, but I'm a little coughy right now. So I've asked Diane to hop in anytime I need to step away, or anytime she wants to, really, because she's our subject matter expert on this. So the first item on your agenda beyond the approval of the minutes is any follow-up information from your meeting from last month. And that meeting was really your introduction to the topic. So it was the time when you looked at, and I'm recapping a couple of them because Mike wasn't able to attend and our colleague from Prince William wasn't here either. So just a little quick recap. Last meeting, you were able to learn a little bit more about our circulation and purchasing patterns on e-materials and physical materials. And you saw that we definitely don't have enough money for both. And we continue to see ever increasing demand for digital materials, which cost us too much money. And we talked about the kind of overlying factors that cause issues for our library system and for our taxpayers as we're purchasing digital materials, namely that there are arbitrary licensing agreements in place that either limit the amount of time that we can get e-materials for, or either limit the amount of time before they go away, like you can check out 52 times and then they disappear, or it might be a set period of time, like they disappear after 2 years. The fact that e-materials or ebooks are qualified as software licenses, so they don't actually count as a book online. So that gives our publishing companies a little bit more flexibility around how and where they charge us. And the fact that some companies won't even sell to us, like Amazon. So that limits a whole big chunk of things that we're able to get our hands on. So we did a little bit more research following this meeting, looking for solutions, because that's the goal of your meeting today, is to talk through what options you all have to actually rectify this problem. Diane, did I miss anything on the recap side before we move into that?
No, I think that was pretty good.
Okay.
Recap.
Yeah. So one of the things that we talked about at the last meeting was, does anyone really have an answer? Gary had asked if the ALA, the American Library Association, had a solid set of resources or like a guideposts that we could follow. And staff went back through and did some additional research. And the answer to that remains, unfortunately, no. If you look at the American Library Association site, it's really focused on pre-pandemic. So their updates on their site really stop with Tor and when Macmillan was disallowing us from purchasing their materials, and it hasn't been updated since then. So they don't have like a legislative or other toolkit that this group could use to figure out what you want to do next. So then we expanded our reach a little bit, and we started looking at the Urban Library Council site. They have a much more expansive overview of all the issues that we talked about last meeting. So you can go and look that over as well. But they also don't have a set of solutions other than make publishers be more nice or something of that ilk. There's no like, here is the answer if only we could do it. So our research has been interesting, but also a little bit not demotivating, but sad. Sad is the word I'm going to go with. Diane, please jump in because I don't want my sad to be the end of that particular point.
Well, honestly, the end game solution, that I think I hear a lot of librarians talking about, but I think would be a very steep get, if we will, but ultimately would be for our digital literary materials to be treated as our print literary materials are vis-a-vis copyright, and having them count as like books do, where we are able to do a lot more with them and they don't simply disappear on us, other than a reasonable kind of timeframes. I mean, that there are things to work out there, but that's one of the, I think, end goal I've heard a number of libraries talk about, if we're able to move the goalpost away from it's digital and treated like licensing.
Thank you. And that really does seem to be the crux of it, that because we can't treat e-materials like books, we don't have the right of first sale, so people can't donate them to libraries after like if you bought an ebook on Amazon, you can't give it to the library afterwards like you could a physical book. Because we don't have that in place, they get to charge whatever rate they want and put in whatever licensing agreements they want. But finding a solution for that is the hard part, because where do you even start with that? Where is the kind of wedge that we can drive in that you can start to lever outward and really have some impact? Gary and I had been emailing a little bit, and Gary, you had found, what was the group that had Michael Blackwell in it?
Readers First.
Is that what it's Readers First?
That's among the other groups. He's also on one of the ALA subcommittees on digital, on ebooks.
Yeah. So Gary, did you have any feelings about that group? Is that something we should talk about here, or join, or try and emulate?
Yeah, I thought that we should look into it. I noticed Arlington and Loudon are both part of it. As far as close to us, and there were about 8 other Virginia libraries.
The group is called Readers First. Diane, do you want to give a little explanation of what that group is for everyone?
Yeah, Readers First is it's a small group of, well, it's not small. There's a small working group. I'm a member of the Readers First working group that worked on issues regarding digital materials, among other things, from the perspective of the consumer, the end users, our customers, our patrons. And so they take it from that perspective, and they work with a number of other groups who are working on similar digital materials advocacy, who are taking it from different aspects. So what Readers First is more about working with publishers and ebooks and working in that area, as opposed to, say, access in terms of broadband type access, or literal access, accessibility, like dyslexia and fonts. So there's various groups. So the Readers First is the one who took on more of the purchasing and publisher, and I guess I'll call it the copyright-ish angles.
Thank you.
Is that part of our committee mandate to look at that way to help into it?
Yeah, well, in the committee mandate, you all can add to it or expand as you'd like as well, if it serves the original function of what you're trying to do.
It seems to me that that in and of itself is important to be part of cooperation with others. And secondly, once we get to that lobbying step, which I hope we'll be doing, it's always good to have networks.
Yeah.
To do it, and they could be part of the network. That-
One of,
Do you
um,
see any reason why we shouldn't be part of it?
no, I was kind of surprised we hadn't already signed on to it, actually. It's totally up our alley. It just must have gotten skipped somewhere along the way. So we're still, I see you grinning over there. Is FCPS a member of that group? No, okay. Gary, do you mind if I share my screen and show the legislative initiative form?
Oh, by all means, great.
Okay. So one of the, let's see if I can get this going. Can everyone see it? It says legislative initiative in green on the top. Yeah, okay, good. So one of the, what appears to be a first step for this group would be to develop a legislative initiative for the County Board of Supervisors consideration. And every year, the Board of Supervisors develops a legislative platform for the county, and the FCPS board does their own as well. So this is just for the county government. And every year around this time, early March or early May-ish, they send around a notice to different agencies and say, okay, it's that time of year again. You've got until July or August to submit any ideas as fully formed as they are at this point to the county's legislative staff. And then the Board of Supervisors refines all of those areas from September, usually through mid to late November. And then they have a defined legislative platform by the time the next General Assembly session opens. So this year, boards, authorities, and commissions have until August 3rd to develop any kind of legislative initiatives that they would like to see for inclusion. I've already given the county exec's office and the legislative office a heads up that you all have this committee and are considering it. So they're aware that it might be coming down the pike and that it might not be entirely fleshed out yet because the committee is still working on it. There are 3 different aspects of what is required for submission. And the first is this general legislative initiative overview form. So you give it a title, you put in a brief description of what you're recommending. We put in the library board. And then for background, usually you're asking for a law to be changed. This seems like it would be more like us asking for a law to be added. So we might have to work directly with the county legislative staff on language for that after it's submitted. They don't want it long though. It really only needs to be a paragraph or 2, because by the time the county's legislative platform as a whole is developed, it's 30 and 40 pages, and they want to make sure that things are as succinct as possible. So that's the first page, just a general overview of any initiative that we're working on. And a brief staff recommendation comes in later from their office. And then they want more information. This is background stuff. So this wouldn't actually go into the platform that goes to the board of supervisors. This is for staff as they are developing the information that would go into there. So you keep the subject area, you put in recommended language if you have it. If you needed more space beyond that paragraph or 2 on the front, you can add it in there. Anything that is regulated, we would need to cite it so that they can go and party with the attorneys and make sure that it's okay to go. This part here, the financial estimate analysis, I think is going to be really important for us to try and figure at least some estimates on, because anytime that the county is looking at making a pro or a con on a different legislative item, they want to know if there's money attached to it, if the county is going to get more money out of it, if we're going to pay out less money for something. So if we can make a good case that we could make better use of county taxpayer dollars here, I think that's an area that this group should focus on. And also, like the pros and cons of an issue. This one is really, how do we get different legislators to support it? So we might want to look at some of the platforms for our local delegates and see where we could tie it into their priority areas. This one I've been thinking about, and we can discuss at a future committee meeting. Support, I think we'll have some good ones we can list in there. Opposition, I think there'll be some of that too. So we would need to kind of prepare some advance information and statements if necessary. Diane, do you happen to remember who opposed it in Maryland?
The Authors Guild and the APA, the Publishing Association.
Okay, thank you. So we would anticipate that similar opposition would come forward around this. It wouldn't likely be any of our own legislators that came forward and said, no, this is bad. It would be groups that are going to lose money off of this if it became a state law. And then staff contact,
But then what, so can I
of course.
ask?
Yeah.
It feels like there's two parts to this, right? And I mean, one part is apart from legislation, is there a, you know, nationwide library-based, library community-based, you know, public relations campaign against publishers choosing to not sell or limit the sales? And there have been, I know, off and on articles about it, and then it just kind of fades. So that's one side. And then this side, the legislative side, I guess the question is, what was there an actual proposed statutory change or new statute somewhere else that we have as a basis to look at this? Because I don't even know what would this look at? You must sell to us. It would have to be
Mhm.
in the state of Virginia. We won't purchase from publishers who won't sell. I mean,
That's very close. Yeah. So the state of Maryland is the one that actually moved forward with legislation last year.
okay.
This year, excuse me. And the way that it was worded was, if you are going to sell to the public, you must also sell to libraries. And I think it actually said public libraries, which is another thing that we could talk about because we want to make sure that Priscilla and all our school buddies are included in there too. Diane, please do hop in here because I'm sure I'm missing some nuance.
That's the primary of it. It was less about, it was, as you indicated, you know, the beginning of the wedge, that was something that was felt to be accomplishable, and who could necessarily argue against, you know, if it's being sold, it's an equity issue, it's an access issue, because
Right.
you're denying it to people who use libraries instead of
Right.
purchasing outright. So that was the primary, and that was in Maryland. It passed, and I believe it's on the governor's desk for signature currently. New York and Rhode
Wait,
Island.
Wait,
Oh,
I'm sorry. Let's just stop with Maryland, and
Okay.
forgive me if this is a repeat for some people, but so it passed in Maryland, and you're saying there was opposition from the authors lobby?
There was, I don't know how opposed the Authors Guild was, but they did put in a position paper on it, and I think it had general opposition. The American Publishers Association definitely was in opposition to it.
Okay, but it's passed, and it is a law that it appears that Hogan's actually going to sign.
Yes.
Yes, and Gary and I were chatting about this a little bit as well, and he did some research and found that if the governor doesn't veto it within 30 days or 60 days, then it becomes law in Maryland. And he's past the 30-day mark, and I don't remember if it's 30 or 60, but it'll go into effect in 2022.
Okay, and do we know what that law is called?
Yes.
The Maryland one?
Diane is frantically going to find the note that I know she's got stuck on a post-it
Well,
somewhere.
I'm just
for you.
saying that if we want to do a legislative proposal, the easiest thing is to model it almost identically over one that has actually passed in another state, even if there are, you know, I mean, you could change it some, but
Yeah.
assuming there's not significant flaws. Okay, and I'm sorry, Jessica, I interrupted you. You were talking
Oh,
about Ohio and New York.
No, you're fine. I just wanted to go through all of this so that you all knew kind of the pieces that are up for discussion,
Mhm.
inclusive of this legislative item. And then they've got a couple of examples so that you can see kind of what they're looking for here. If we borrow the language from the Maryland legislative piece, it's really just you know, the language that they ended up with, and then the opposition and the support statements. So we can craft things off of that as well. But you can see that they're not looking for like really lengthy things. They're looking for kind of the down and dirty. What are we asking them to change or add or amend? and then they'll be going through the discussion process with it. So they included a couple of different examples, and I will forward this around to the full board so you have it as well. And you can see you've got until August 3rd because you're a board, authority, or commission. So I'm going to stop sharing for now and go back to here. So that's kind of the first opportunity for a solution that this board has to consider. And it's probably the most time constrictive piece as well, because you only have until August 3rd. Your chair and I have been talking about putting in a consideration item in June that just says that this is under topic and that something might be updated. And then for the July meeting, you all will have it as an action item, so that you'll have a chance to actually talk about it as a full group with everyone on the board. So, and you may also have seen in the chats, Diane just included the Maryland legislation item. I don't actually see that it has a name. Public Libraries Electronic Literary Process Licensing. That's not a very exciting. Maybe there's an acronym to be built out of that somewhere. So what do you all think? Is this the first step that you'd like to look at? Are there other pieces that you can think of that we could, does anyone have like a really cool contact within the publishing world that we can use to force our way into the game and move things in the right direction? No? Okay. I thought that was a long shot, but out there anyways. So Gary, you're the chair of this committee. Are you interested in starting off with a legislative piece and going from there? Do you want to join Readers First and try and do this as a collective? What's your hope?
Well, I think the immediate thing is, in order to get something approved by the board, we have to have something as a consideration item right away, which would be for June. And so I was thinking maybe, wondered if we could get away with something general that could be approved, keeping in mind that probably the only avenue that makes sense in the end is the Maryland initiative, which, as I recall, 2 other states, Rhode Island and 1 other, are going in that direction as well. But not have to be pinned down to exact language. Do you think we could get away with that?
I think you can for your board. So if we start off with a consideration item for June that says the committee is drafting something, and we include, the template so that they have an idea of what is to come. And then at July, maybe during your committee report, you can present the language that you all have worked on. And then during the action item, you can actually do some wordsmithing if you'd like to invite that at the full board meeting. That might be okay.
Well,
Fran, are you comfortable with that as well?
I drafted something I was wondering if we could get away with, so that we can be as flexible as possible. By the time the legislature meets, the whole world might have changed in terms of what's happening. Well, let me just read it. It's something that only Miriam would identify with. But the board authorizes the director to prepare and submit on its behalf to the board of supervisors an item for inclusion in the county's legislative agenda that supports action by the state legislature to address barriers encountered by the library in the purchase of e-materials, including but not limited to cost, licensing limitations, and refusal to sell the library. And if the board would go with that, that really gives us flexibility to do anything we want over the next 9 months or whatever it is.
I like that. if you include that as a consideration item for June, we could still include the template for the legislative initiative so people know what to expect when it's done. And then we can still bring it back to the full board whenever there are iterations that move forward to the full county for further discussion. But you're right, that I think that gives the most opportunity. Maybe we could include something in there about regional cooperation as well. About
But wouldn't that be part of the thing you fill out?
yeah, we can just include it in the background information.
I got a question, and please pardon my ignorance. If this has to eventually go to the governor, how come we're not doing direct outreach to like Senate and House members?
So at this point, actually, let me start at a different point. The boards, authorities, and commissions and staff cannot lobby on things that aren't in the county's legislative platform. So this is step one.
Very good.
Yeah, I know it would be nice. And
That's important to understand. Okay.
It is. And lobbying in general as a board, authority, and commission member. So Mike, you're separate. You can do whatever you want, apparently, as the foundation board member. But everyone else, because you're representing the county, you need to represent their interests.
Got it.
Yes. And that'll be something to consider for the actual item that goes through too. The other ongoing legislative platform item that the board has for libraries is to maximize state funding. And that is broad enough that you all can do a lot of things under it. It even allows you to lobby federally because federal funds come to the state library, which get allocated to library jurisdictions in Virginia. So giving yourself a broad base for whatever this ends up being will likely be important as well as you start actively engaging in lobbying once, I assume, this passes the board of supervisors. I was trying to think, I've been staying up at random hours lately thinking about this and other things. And I can't imagine why our board of supervisors wouldn't support this. It seems like something that they would all be supportive of. It would be a better use of taxpayer dollars, certainly more equitable if we're trying to distribute resources across all county residents through books and audiobooks. But are there any tactics on this that we should think of that might dissuade our board of supervisors from being favorable?
So this is what I was thinking. It really depends on the scope of their priorities for the year. So they only, they have a certain amount of political capital and time in order to put forward their proposals. And that's the only thing. What else is the county asking the state for in a year before an election, right? You typically, right, the proposals are financially based, either tax proposals or other allocations of state taxes, but that's the question. And the only way you're going to find that is by seeing if you can get any insight from the county's legislative office to see if they're going to have space to do this. It's certainly worth making the proposal, and it's certainly worth aligning with what Maryland did and whoever the sponsors there were in order to line it up to show that, especially because it's Maryland. I mean, I just looked online and it looked like there was a Rhode Island bill and a New York bill, both of which got dropped off the schedule from last year, probably because of COVID related stuff, but may be introduced. But that's my only thought, is whether or not this just gets lost in the shuffle. It's not a hard ask. That's, in order for it to be effective, they have to be willing to go and use their leverage with the delegates from this area and senators to introduce the legislation.
Absolutely. And we're really fortunate that we have two people in the state legislature that used to be the chair of our library board. So I'm hoping that might be a good starting place for some of these. My it's not even a fear, but the county's legislative platform, you're right, is absolutely ginormous. And there's lots and lots of little things that get tucked in there that never have any lobbying activities that go along with them because they're not the highest priority. And typically, at least it feels like, The county is asking for additional authority and autonomy. So the county is asking for more ability to do things itself. And this particular piece is actually us asking the state to take a stronger stance on something, not asking for more delegation of authority. So that might be a kind of a different bend on their normal as well.
And the county lobbyists won't have to carry any water. It'll be carried by other people.
That's true. Yeah, it would be nice. Fran, you're muted.
Have you heard of this thing called the US Book Show, which is online? Because there's that guy from Readers First. I just plugged it in, is speaking at that, whatever this is, publishers
Yeah.
symposium or something.
And I think, Diane, we've got some people going to that one, right? We have 2 staff members attending.
I mean, it's all online, so whatever. Okay.
Fran?
Oh, I wondered, in terms of statewide support and advocacy, if what's going on with VLA, because if it were possible then to get, delegates and senators from other counties tapped and ready and willing to support that, I think that would be helpful. And maybe there's another avenue. The first one that comes to my mind is VLA, and I don't know what the VLA path toward legislation might be.
Well, I have an interesting update on that side. So I happen to be on VLA's Advocacy Committee. It's got a longer name than that, but that's in general what it is. And this group is comprised of public library directors and academic library chairs. And we've been talking about how the Virginia Library Association can kind of use our collective library power a little bit more.
Mhm.
And one of the topics we've been talking about is ebooks. And so they know that Fairfax County is discussing this right now and might be moving forward a potential legislative initiative topic. And we are meeting with the state librarian next month, the director of the Urban Library Council the month after that, and then I can't remember who, someone from ALA the month after that. So we are trying to line all those ducks up in a
Great.
row as well, so
Great.
that if this item moves forward, they're prepared to engage around it and support it.
Great.
Yeah.
And I wonder, it makes me think that, well, if our, if our Fairfax County delegation is too jammed full of things like you guys have mentioning, is there another county that could do it? And then, there would be support from our representatives. But, maybe somebody else will introduce it.
Okay, I think I muted double Sheila. That's a great point. And that's part of the reason that we were looking for regional cooperation on here.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we have someone from Prince William County on right
Terrific.
now.
Yeah, that's good.
And I've gotten affirmatives back from Loudoun, Alexandria, and Falls Church that they're interested in participating as well. They just couldn't make it into their calendars. So maybe
Great.
if our folks, although we kind of all share many of the same representatives in this area, so we might need to look a little further afield, right?
Well, and the election for the House and Senate, the Virginia House and Senate, is this fall. So, this is something that at their campaign events, for those of us who are interested in advocating, to go and ask them about.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a tactic for advocacy, is to be there and ask them, do you support the ebook advocacy, whatever.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, I haven't heard of that. Well, let me tell you,
Yeah. Well, and
that's
many
down
of
the
us-
road, but
Yeah, but many of us saw Delegate Sickles at that event
Mhm.
last week. I would hazard a guess that he might be willing to support this. It's finding somebody to introduce it that has the time and the energy and the interest that we'll need to really hone in on once we get moving a little further along on the county process.
But
So
first things first.
Jessica, back to your your question about, why wouldn't someone be supportive of this? I guess
Yeah.
the 800-pound gorilla named Amazon, right? I mean, so the way this, I was reading over all of the legislation, the links that Diane provided, right? And clearly for Virginia, that means Amazon, right? And HQ2 and that, I mean,
Yeah.
I would imagine they are against this kind of legislation. I obviously don't know how much they would have lobbied, Maryland or something, or, in New York, although New York has all the big publishing houses. So that's another aspect, right, of maybe what happened there. I don't know. But I guess that would be, I think because the way I read these legislation proposals, right, it's just saying, if you're going to give a software license to me, the individual, when I buy my Amazon ebook, that you'll give that same license to the library, right? Basically, I mean, it's basically saying you have to sell. It's still, you can have all the restrictions. We're not talking about restrictions, right? They can still say,
this is just
okay,
selling.
library, you still can only use it 6 times or for a year and a half or whatever. But I guess that's the piece where I think, and it's more probably on the education side, or just making sure it's clear that the equity about the selling piece, but that would be the impact, right? Because does somebody want to go and, when you look at it and read it, it's like, oh, this is Amazon, and people learn about it. And the state has done, the last, 3-4 years of, trying to get Amazon to build HQ2, and now they're doing it. And, obviously I have no idea what their political, lobbying efforts are like, but I guess that's the only thing that pops in my head to your question about who would be against it. It would be Amazon and their money to go to the local politicians and say, do you really want to, make us mad about this?
But on the opposite side, what a wonderful engagement opportunity. If we could convince them that this could be good PR for Amazon.
Mhm.
You are building HQ2 here. We want to partner with you and promote the authors that are strictly selling through your platform. We can both win off of this.
Yeah.
This could be such a positive for them if we could convince them to do it. Like, we already pay outrageous sums of money for all the other things we buy. We're not even asking for discounts. We just want to buy your stuff like everybody else. Yeah, that's not going to be the specific talking points we would probably use. Give us your stuff. We just want to buy it. But Priscilla?
Another thing, I'm not sure, I don't know all the ins and outs in the public library world, but for example, Simon and Schuster won't let us in schools buy anything that would be accessible by more than one location versus other, pretty much every other publisher. Again, they can limit and they can make it hugely expensive, but at least we can buy, right? But I have to buy like, I'm sorry, Simon and Schuster won't sell to me at all. The other publishers will say, well, you have to buy X number of copies. So I'm wondering if the wording of that, and if it sticks to libraries, if that also would have a big impact on us. Because if you look at Simon and Schuster and all of its imprints, it's some very, very, very popular YA and middle grade books that we can't offer to our students through essentially purchase model. So just another thought.
Yes.
Sheila?
Oh, you're muted.
Okay, this is probably going to be the dumbest question, but what excuse do these publishers and does Amazon give for not selling a few ebooks? Because from what I've read, it's not a volume, it's just a few to the library. Do they really feel the library's competition to their sales base?
I'm going to let Diane answer that.
Yeah, I'm really perplexed.
And let is a generous term. I'm going to ask Diane to answer that because I think she will do a better job.
I am going to try and give the least snarky response I
No,
can.
Go full snark. We're ready.
Go
Well,
fine.
we are recording, so
That's right.
basically they don't. Usually, it's a competition or it cuts into profit is the, I'll call it the surface reason, but to be perfectly honest, they don't actually defend themselves. They simply don't sell, and they don't necessarily feel the need to defend themselves. But when asked, they tend to indicate that it's it'll cut into their profits, or they'll even go so far as to hold up the authors as, well, we're taking money out of our authors' mouths. We're not, we're and their responses to that that have been offered up by ALA's lobbying and legal arms. But that's generally what one will get. It is, as was indicated, there is some stonewalling, but it's generally not, in my opinion, it's not a strong defense that they give, but the one they give tends to be about profit. Or they've actually called out copyright as well, which I find fascinating, considering these aren't covered by copyright in the same way. So
Yeah.
Diane, there's a question in the chat for you, I think. Is there any data on the profit issue?
there are some inferences. It's a very opaque kind of model, and the models that are used in the US are very different than, say, the models in other countries, or can be different, I should say, in terms of how publishing pays its authors and how libraries might, I believe in, as somebody pointed out, in Finland, I think it happens in the UK as well, and another country where the circulation of the books from libraries, a piece of that goes to the profit or goes to the author as a royalty, right? So they've got some standards around that. That does not happen here because of our copyright laws are different. So is there any data on that? There is some inferred or implied data, but there is a lot of opacity around that. I don't have the necessary context to get at that, but I know people who have better contacts than I, and some of the Readers First group I've been working with. And so there have been some conclusions that have been made based on some presumptions of how various groups are profiting, how the publisher might be profiting, and how distributors might be profiting on that based on what we know of the contracts.
Less about how the authors are actually profiting.
Correct.
Yeah.
A lot less about that, because
Yeah.
those are individual contracts that we,
Yeah. So 2 or so years ago, when the issue with Tor came up, when Tor, which is a division of Macmillan, had decided that they were going to put a halt on selling materials to libraries as a test to see if it would drive up sales of their items from the public. They instituted, I don't even remember, it was like 2 or 3 months of testing that out.
Right.
And then they decided that it had a really favorable response for them. And so they decided they were going to extend it and not sell to libraries anymore, but they didn't have to provide us any of their data. So the stuff that they did provide us was not actually very helpful. It was just numbers, with not a lot of context behind them. And we can't force them to give us the data on how much they pay their authors and how much they keep for themselves and how much, each of these contracts is negotiated for. So it's a lot of iffy-andy math when we're trying to figure out, we don't want to short our publishing companies or our author partners. We just want a chance to buy their stuff and help them promote it. We're just looking for a little bit of fairness in there.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Did anyone try to sue over that with Tor and Macmillan? Did anyone take them to court? Because to your point about having data, like obviously if someone were able to sue them and get discovery to get information out about that to try to do it, it's just a thought. I don't know if that's.
I'm not aware. Diane or Priscilla, have you heard anything?
not to my knowledge. The closest anybody came to calling out a data source was the Steve Potash at Overdrive, who is our primary platform. called out some of the data that Tor and Macmillan provided as they believed it came from Amazon. He basically called it out as coming from Amazon, but as far as I'm aware, nobody sued anybody else over it, because they were using a new metric that nobody ever used in the library kind of world before, about how many reads, because we don't know how many people actually opened it up on their device. There's only a couple places that do that.
Mm,
That's a really interesting point to start gauging, though.
mhm.
I don't know that we would, like, we as a system, I don't even know how we would go about that. We don't buy enough of that one publishing company's materials during the period of time that they put a cessation on it, that there might be enough monetary value to make it worth the county's time to file a lawsuit and fight it. But if it had a larger impact on potentially changing the laws around this, then maybe. Okay, that's a weekend noodle. That's a longer term thought process.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess some of that goes to what I was thinking is that other aspect of the author, right? It's there. I mean, but that's the problem with the data, right? If you could say, look, if you offer these up and the library's buying them, that, you know, licenses, right? That should be more money in the pocket of, you know, authors, right? I mean, yeah, does it stop people from buying it personally? But then there is the cost difference still, right? So library pays a lot more than I do for that license. So in theory, is the author getting the full benefit of that? Or are they getting shortchanged? Or is that what they're trying to say, that the author gets shortchanged because we pay the author the same amount, even though we charge the library 7 times what a normal person pays?
Yeah, that's part of the problem is we're paying a higher amount, but we don't know how much they give the author.
Right.
We have no idea what contractual obligations they've put into place to pay the author a larger amount. When Diane and I were talking about this offline about some of the models that are in the UK, or not the UK, or in the EU, like if a library buys a book, their version of copyright means that in some countries means that the author gets paid for every time a library item circulates of theirs. So you know that they're continuing to get some flow of income for use from the library. Well, that might drive down the cost of the initial price of the book because the author knows they're going to keep getting money later. And that was just really cool, but it's not something that works within our US model of copyright law, unfortunately. I don't know that we want to. Gary, do you want to take on copyright law? Is that a big enough ask?
I had a related question. I asked it last meeting, and I'm even struggling with it more now, is how you can pass a state law that would control these big companies. Now, Purcell made a very, very important point about textbooks, where let's say Texas is one of these states passes a law that you can't have something in the textbook or whatever, and so the publisher then does that, and because I apologize, I'm having trouble. Purcell, you say it. What happened?
No, I'm just saying that after a certain point, if there's enough pressure, like Texas, like I forget the statistic, but for the online, I mean, for textbook purchasing, they're huge. And so when they make demands legislatively that any textbook or any book that's taught in Texas has to have this particular content or whatever, all textbooks end up having that content because they don't want to create 2 versions of the textbook. But the idea is that they are, there's enough demand that they're leveraged into making a change that maybe they didn't necessarily want to change. But there's a big difference between that situation and what we're talking about here, in the sense that only we'd have to have a lot more people. We don't like, we'd have to have a lot more states to say, well, are we not going to buy then? And, you know, there's still the whole,
Yeah.
the
That's the essence.
profits are so enormous for them that it doesn't make a difference if you say, you know.
Right, because what I can't figure out is how Virginia could enforce it. How could they stop Amazon from selling a book to me? Just because they won't sell the same book to the library.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I would be happy to loop in our legal counsel on it. I assumed, rightly or wrongly, not having a legal degree, that was why there was a delay in the implementation of it for Maryland. That if the law went into effect, you know, whatever, it goes into effect sometime in 2022. That's giving the companies the next year to figure out how to insure it. And maybe it works the way same like sales tax does. Like if you're on Amazon and you put in your zip code to have something shipped to you, or you've got your account set up and it comes up with a Virginia zip code, then they would be able to, I don't know, I haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
Diane, you
I mean,
had
the
sorry.
Maryland law just says, you know, it's unfair business practices. I mean, basically it's under the title. So it would have to be, the state would have to take them to court to basically say you're not following our fair business practice laws.
Yeah, and I don't know if they're looking at actually stopping them or perhaps fining them for every transaction that would have happened, kind of thing, in which, so I don't know what the enforcement mechanism in Maryland was. And honestly, the inability to enforce certain things might be why states haven't been as willing to, put things out there.
Mhm.
And it's also that momentum piece that Priscilla was talking about. If Maryland has it in place, and then we put it in place, and then more states put it in place,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
eventually you reach a tipping point, and Amazon just needs to change their selling practices. That's valuable, even if it's got a longer term trajectory on it.
Right.
Oh, I feel like we've bummed everyone out.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I-
Sorry for a Friday afternoon.
I have one more question. This is really, I know there won't be any answer to it, but we've been looking at this from a legislative point of view, which I think probably is the only one. But on the other hand, you've got the popular point of view, and a few people who have, that wonderful article in the Washington Post, was it last month, about how Amazon refusing to sell eBook, the audio, to the library. They were shocked. They were astounded. They couldn't believe it. Why? And there are some authors like Neil Gaiman, Baldacci, and they just come to my mind. Patchett, who are also library oriented authors and very, very popular, and I'm sure with lots of money. I wonder if there was, now we certainly can't go out and get their support, but I wonder if there would be some way of getting the support of authors who I don't know about you, but every time I read an article by an author, an interview, when I went to the library when I was 12, when my grandmother took me to the library, my first book was from the library. There are a lot of authors who base their whole career on starting at the library. And I'm just wondering if maybe public opinion would have an equal amount of clout in getting Amazon to change for example, Amazon to change its platform. I don't know, but as I said, I know there's no answer to that. It's just something I've been thinking about. So
I agree with that one.
perfect stopper.
Well, no, it's like the
Yeah.
court of public opinion, right? That if
Exactly.
if the people get upset enough about something, then maybe there's an additional level of groundswell out there that's not even coming from library boards or library staff. It's coming from regular citizens that might have even more impact on politicians that are making decisions about this.
But that doesn't help
I
us
think
with
that
our
was my
decision.
point at the beginning of saying there hasn't really been a loud, effective public relations
No, there
effort on this, which
Right.
is not inexpensive for it to have an impact, because you'd want to have a public relations campaign that had an end goal, whatever, whatever it happened to be. But that would actually be very effective, only because, people nobody would not say that's ridiculous.
But I think that's what the lobbying thing would do. We'd be all working toward the goal of the legislation.
Right, I'm not saying, so like doing this big public relations is not something that we can undertake. This is something that like the National Library Association would need to undertake, and they'd need to fund it or figure out a way to fund it and get some kind of, get sponsors and whatever, and undertake that with in conjunction with, I guess, legislative efforts, unless on its own it managed to turn public opinion to this way. It's just, there's a lot vying for attention in public opinion.
So I don't disagree. I'm saying what that would do, that would give us the vehicle for the public relations campaign. And if we're reaching success, it looks like we might, then Amazon would say, well, gee, we're really bad in this whole thing, and change their policy, even if we don't get the legislation. But the lobbying, trying to get the legislation is the vehicle that would make this happen, because it's not happening now, as you said, Diane, trying to work directly with the company.
Mm.
I didn't say that.
Yeah.
No, I think you did. I think it's just, this is going to be a multifaceted process, and it's going to take
Mhm.
some time.
Mhm.
So we're just, maybe one of your future, so like maybe the next meeting, like I know Keith and Priscilla said they had to hop off. Have fun. We'll miss you. But maybe the next meeting we could focus on kind of a pronged trajectory about what, after the legislative item, what other action steps do we want to try and do?
Yeah.
Do we want to have trustees try and join some of these ALA groups and committees to try and push forward this agenda? Because the folks that are currently on there have not been able to make a lot of progress on that. Do we want to get more involved with Readers First? Like, what are those other vehicles that this committee can hop onto to help move that project forward?
Mhm.
We're gonna cut this off, and let me make two suggestions. One, that you approve the language that I read, so that we have something to put in the packet as a consideration item. Number two, we recommend that Fairfax County join the coalition, the Readers First thing. And three, prevail upon Diane to call Michael Blackwell and get a real good reading on the Maryland situation, whether it's been enacted and what they encounter. We raised the question of, what's the problem? Are there problems with getting it enacted, and are there problems now in trying to implement it, and so forth? And third, any other advice you might have for us? So, those are the three things I would suggest that we approve for the meeting.
Okay. Staff can handle those second two. We'll get involved with the coalition, and Diane can give Mr. Blackwell a call. And I don't know if you need a motion to add that language for a consideration item.
We do?
I'm not sure. It's because it's not, I don't,
Well, let's put it this way. Does anybody object to Jessica putting that language in the packet as a consideration item?
okay, you got a lot of shakes. I think you're good to go.
Okay.
Would you mind emailing that to me and I'll draft the consideration in for you?
Sure. Anybody have anything else? Great. Okay. Well, we got the next meeting.
Yes. Do you want to meet again in about 3 weeks or 4? What's your timeline?
We
Do you want to
talked-
meet in 3 weeks or 4?
we talked about doing it monthly.
Okay.
Mhm.
Excuse me. How about, do you want to keep it on Fridays, Gary?
Doesn't matter to me. Whatever works for the rest.
How about either Friday, June 4th or Friday, June 11th in the afternoon? Like 2 o'clock again.
Um, is one of those after our next board meeting?
Yes, your next board meeting is the 9th.
Good night.
Yeah. Don't you think it'd be better to do it after the board meeting?
Okay. So you want to do it on Friday, June 11th?
That's good with everybody else.
I mean, I can't come that particular day, but I mean, that's fine. Not everybody can attend all meetings, so.
Um,
I can send around some alternative dates and times via email if you'd like, Gary.
Okay, but do you agree that it's probably better to do it after the full meeting
Sure.
in case there's some input?
Things that come up.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. We all set?
Yep. You are welcome to adjourn.
Thank you very much, everybody. We will meet again.
All right, thank you.
Nice
Have a good
seeing you.
weekend, everybody.
Kirk, thank you for joining us from Prince William. I'll be in touch.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.